Hello again, welcome back. I'm Angela from artery.co.uk. Thank you so much for joining me today, I really appreciate it. Today is an introduction to mixed media. You may have heard of it or you may not, but basically a brief explanation is that if you use more than one kind of product or kind of medium to make your card or to make any other project, then you have just made a mixed media project. So this was my first attempt. Now there were a few things that I didn't like about this, personal preference things I think, but this is more because the leaves on it and the acorns are a little bit autumny. I do wish I'd used like different colours for my background. Also, it hasn't blended very well in some places. You might like that, I don't. And the sentiment, the heat embossed sentiment to my way of thinking should have been a bit larger because you can't quite see it on the vellum. So for this project, I cannot say that word, can I? For this project, I shall put that to one side. I will be using watercolour paper because we are going to be using acrylic paints but watered down to like a watercolour consistency. I'm using the watercolour paper so that it doesn't soak through the back. I am going to be using salt. Yes, salt. And I'll be using this luster wax from Sizzix. It's gold. The one thing I will say about this, less is more. Because I don't know if you can see on there, I was very careful. I should have worn gloves really, but I was very careful about applying it because it is very easy to overdo it. And as we always say in crafting, it's a lot easier to add more than it is to take off. Well, it's impossible to take it off once you've added it, isn't it? So I'll be using this embossing folder, the same one with the leaves and the acorns. I'll be using a larger sentiment this time. I think I'll use the Congrats one. I'm still going to heat emboss it and attach it to the vellum. First of all, we start by watering down and mixing the paint. I'm just going to use my spray bottle of water for this and a paintbrush. I'm only going to use a small amount of each. I'll try and keep that the glare covered up because it's really annoying. This is my new glass mat and it's fabulous. Right, so I'll put a bit of red, a bit of orange. These are more autumny colours, I think. I've no idea how this is going to turn out. This is only my second go at mixed media. Then spray them, give them a good spray because I want them quite wet. Get that water mixed in there. Then what I'm going to do is just take my paper and just dab it, dauble it on all the different colours. Should have perhaps been a bit more liquidy, but you know, it doesn't matter. The good thing about your projects is that you do it how you want it. It is messy. And I sometimes think that's the funnest part. So that looks very red, so I'm going to clean that up and I'm going to put a bit more orange onto it. I'll just move that over there for now. Put a bit of orange on. Just give that a little bit of a clean. It doesn't matter if it gets a little bit of red mixed into it. I want this a bit more. I want this a bit thinner. You can do this exactly how you like. You can put as little or as much on as you want. You can have white space, you can have no white space. It's entirely up to you. Now you can either... I should have worn some protective clothing. Now you can either leave that to dry, or you can heat dry it with a heat gun. I'm going to leave it to dry overnight, and I'll be back tomorrow to see what else we can do with this. Okay, one thing I would like to mention. I mean, that might be a bit too bold for you. In that case, you can use a smaller amount of paint and water it down a lot more. But even if you don't have acrylic paints, if all you have is ink, it is still perfectly doable. I'm still going to use watercolour paper. So for instance, I'm using brown. Oops, and I've just got it all over my thumb. Well done. I always end up in a right mess when I do my project. Right, so now you can water that down, like a lot. And then you can pick it up the same way as you did the paint. Just give that a bit of a wipe. And then we'll do the red. There, nice, very nice and watery that. It'll give a much softer background. I wouldn't worry too much about the white, the bits of white. We can always sort that out later, or you can leave it as you like. That's entirely up to you. I'm going to put a little bit more orange on there again. The red seems to be overpowering everything tonight. Right, I think I'll just leave that there. But the more watery your medium, the more subtle your background. I also forgot to mention what we need the salt for. So when you're using acrylic paint, salt has an interesting reaction. So I'll put that there so you can see it. While it's still wet, just put some salt on your hands and just sprinkle it where you want, and you'll see it reacting with the paint. See if I can lift that up for you to have a look at. I don't know if you can see it properly yet. I don't know if you can see where the salt has been sprinkled on. So we'll come back tomorrow and see exactly what all this is like and get cracking making some cards with them. Hello, I'm back. It is now tomorrow. Bit of a confession to make. The paper that I'd used too much paint on, or in my opinion too much paint, I didn't like, so I was going to throw it away. But then I thought, oh, do you know, I'll brush off the salt, I'll use some of the luster wax and see how it goes, and this is how it turned out. And do you know, I absolutely love it. Isn't that absolutely gorgeous? Now the beauty about crafting is that it's all down to personal preference. There's no right and wrong. There's no you shouldn't like that because I don't like it. There's even mistakes can lead to, as Bob Ross would say, happy accidents. And I absolutely love that. Once I put the luster wax on, just fell in love with it. So I wished I'd actually caught that on camera now. so I am definitely going to make a card out of that. But I'm going to put the luster wax on this one just so you can see the process. And I know I said with luster wax less is more, but I put quite a bit on here and I think it's come out beautifully. I'm really happy with that. So this is your Sizzix luster wax. You may want to use gloves. I don't, because it seems to wipe off quite easily. So first of all, just take a small amount and start dabbing it on. And you can dab it and you can rub it like that. And you do get, just add more as you feel it needs more. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to speed this up now and you can see what it's like when it's finished. Right, there you go, that's that one done. It is a more subtle effect, partly I think because the background is a bit lighter. So that, like I said, personal preference, it's entirely up to you. And this one is even more subtle because I used a lot less paint and a lot more water for the background in there. So when I've sprinkled on the salt, you can see that it's seeped into the water and given it a really nice effect. Not so much on that one. I think I put too much paint on and not enough water for the salt to take effect like it has on that one, as you can see there, which I think is a really nice effect. So they're the two different ways that you can do it. You can do it with your paint, you can do it with ink, and you're going to get a very similar effect. It all depends what you want, the different colours and that you're going to use. So what I'm going to do now is set up my sentiment and then I'll be back. Right, so what I've been learning this morning actually when I was looking for embossing powders, there are different types that you can get. You can get anything from super fine up to your chunky ones like your glitters and things like that, depending on the effect you want. So I've ordered some super fine ones which are going to be better for a sentiment like that, because you can see that there's no really fine detail shown through there, which I wasn't happy with that from the start. But I've ordered some super fine ones and hopefully it will get a much better imprint on the fine sentiments. So on this one I'm going to use the Congrats. I'm going to stamp it. I'm just going to stamp it on a big piece of vellum because then I can cut out what I don't need. What I need. Plenty of ink without pressing too hard. You don't want it to smudge. It would help if I stamped it on first. So I'm just going to stamp it in the middle of the page, towards the bottom, in the middle as far as I can get it. So press it down without doing it too hard because it will smudge. I'm going to use gold again. This is just my Pretty Things one, but I have ordered some more. Let's see how this goes. See, I mustn't have done... I've used the anti-static powder, but then I've gone and put my fingerprints all over it again, which wasn't very bright. So I shall try and brush some of that away. And I'm going to heat up my heat gun for about 30 seconds and then I'm going to heat that from behind because it's quite glittery and I don't want all the glitter blowing off. Only use your heat gun for as long as you need to for it to melt. You don't want it to over melt because it will spludge. So I don't think somehow that is, yeah, that will look okay on there. I didn't think it was going to show through because of the gold in the background, but I'll get this cut out and stuck on and we'll see how that looks. So when it comes to your vellum sentiment, you can't, oh, you can see where I've been trying to scrape it off there. Just pretend that didn't happen. So what you can do is just get it in the centre, or get it where you want it, as straight as you can, and then just fold it over. You can't put glue on the front because it will show through. So what I do is just bend it around like that, and then what I can do then, I just put some tape on the back just to keep it in place. Just normal sellotape does. It just holds it in place. Just going to try and make sure that that's straight as I can get it. Give that a good crease. And then when you stick it onto the card front, it should look okay. So, I mean, like I say, this might not be for everyone, and I wished I hadn't done that. I was scraping at it to get off the embossing powder because I'd used, like I said, my greasy fingers and it had smudged it all again, but never mind. That's just an idea of the different looks you can get using different mediums. So these are the finished cards, well, kind of finished. I've just put this on a card panel. I haven't actually put that onto a card yet. I'll sort that out later. This one, I thought I would amp it up a bit and use white embossing powder for the sentiment, and I think it goes well with the white card. I was quite surprised. I didn't think that would look nice, but it has. This one again, I might remove the vellum when I get my fine embossing powder and have another go, because although I do like that sentiment, it has smudged a little bit because of the embossing powder that I've used. That one, if you remember the little imperfection I covered it over with a little gem. There's usually something you can do to salvage your projects. But anyway, that's a little introduction into mixed media. If you've never tried it before, have a go. You've got inks, you've got paint, you've got the luster wax, you've got salt even. Just have a look, search YouTube for the many different kinds of mixed media projects that are out there. Don't be stuck with just crafty products. I've seen people use lace and other kinds of material to add to the mixed media projects. But don't be frightened to experiment. I did not think this was going to turn out right because I know I used far too much paint. But I'm actually quite happy with the way that's turned out. I just really love the colours and how that luster wax has just brought the card to life, really. And this one, although it was a lot more subtle, this was the ink one. That's still really nice. And this one, although I do wish I'd used different colours, you've got a different look altogether. And you can see the salt on that one, because I did use paint for this, but it was really a tiny bit of paint and really watered down. So when I sprinkle the salt on, you get it reacting there straight away. Different looks depending on what you want. So like I said before, there's no right and wrong. There's no good and bad. Just do what you want. Experiment until you find the look that you are happy with. But in the meantime, thank you so much for staying with me. I really appreciate each and every one of you. Thank you again. Bye bye now.